Okay, good. Mm-hmm. All right, so. Okay. Welcome to Raising Strong Wills Kids Summit. My name is Andrea Milioti, and I'm your host. And today's guest is Dr. Tonya Crombie. And Dr. Tonya is the best-selling author of Stop Worrying About Your Anxious Child. She is a certified life coach who teaches parents and teachers how to help children who struggle with anxiety. Tonya has an MBA and a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. However, in addition to being someone with letters behind her name, Tonya is the mom of two teenagers who have had their struggles with anxiety. All of her work as a coach, speaker, writer, and facilitator is informed by her experience as a parent of anxious children and is driven by the desire to help young people thrive in the high pressure, stressful world in which we live. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. How are you? So
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Andrea.
no problem. That's what it all comes down to, our own experiences.
Right.
Yes, so I know. Okay, so I'm glad that you can join us. So tell me, why do you do what you do?
Well,
basically from that's the start of it, but you know.
Yeah, like you just said, I have a PhD in psychology. I have been coaching for over 20 years. I have all kinds of training. And when my own child struggled with anxiety, I felt completely helpless. I felt like I did not know what to do. I laid in bed at night replaying what had happened that day and thinking I'm the worst mother in the world. I handled that completely wrong. All of those things. And it was just when she was at her lowest point, it was getting worse and worse. And so what happened for me, in all honesty, and this is what my book is about, the honest truth, because I could tell a story like, oh, I got all this training, and then when my child struggled, I knew exactly what to do. But that's just not the truth. The truth was like, I felt like I was falling apart. I was like arguing with my husband, and we just typically don't argue a whole lot. And we were like snapping at each other. And my other child, when one child was really, really struggling, the other child was like unhappy and saying things like, could you stop? Could y'all two stop arguing? Could you just do this when I'm not with you? And so the other child is suffering. Everybody in my house.
I know this very well. Yes.
Yeah, if you've been there, everybody knows this. And so what I kind of had this like, Tonya, just do what you would tell one of your clients to do right now. Just what would you tell a client? Just do that, because you've got to do something. And if you were your own client, what would you do? And so I started like doing my own stuff, and it was helping me, Right. I had been telling people for probably 10 years, you should meditate. I did not meditate, and I told myself I'm not the right type of person to meditate, but I had been telling other people they should meditate. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try this meditation thing. And I did, and I kept doing it, and it started helping me just feel better. But the miracle of all this, and I did other things besides meditating, but meditating is one good example. And as I started doing that stuff, my anxious child started feeling better. My other child started feeling better. My husband and I stopped arguing as much. I mean, by me fixing me, everything around me started to get better. So that's why I do this work, because I learned the hard way, really.
That's exactly, I mean, that's what it is, and that's what you've done. Can you give us a little like how like a little background on how, let's say, how you first like when you started, like what you started doing to take care of you?
So, like I said, probably the first thing I did is I
Right.
put in a meditation practice.
Okay.
And I love telling people this because this is the people who are out there who are listening, who are saying, oh, meditation is for those other kind of people. And
Hmm.
meditation is that's for those like calm yoga teacher people. And let me tell you, I'm none of those things. I have like, I curse, I like have a temper, very type A. I'm so one of those like, come on, we gotta go. That is me. All of those things. So if you said it's not for, I'm not that kind of person. Yes,
Right.
I'm not either. So what I had to do, because I for years told myself, I'm not that kind of person. I can't ever do it. So what I decided to do was I just said, just just try.
Right.
You don't have to be good at it. Just sit here for 5 minutes and try to just focus on your breathing. Or sometimes I got the Calm app, just listen to something on the Calm app, or just listen to this guided meditation that somebody posted on YouTube. I mean, I tried a lot of different stuff. And sometimes it was like, oh, that was awesome. That felt so good. Sometimes it was like, didn't do it for me.
I can
But
feel it. Yeah.
and you just keep doing it. And you don't have an idea of what's
Exactly.
supposed to happen. And when you
Yeah.
give
Exactly.
yourself permission to try and to not be good, you're more
Yeah.
likely to keep doing it, you know?
Definitely. I mean, it's just about just practice. Like sometimes I always say baby steps.
Hmm.
Just baby step, one
Yeah.
thing, and then just work on that one thing. You know, and yeah, definitely. Well, like, okay, what should someone know if, like, say, someone like somebody watching right now that has a child that's struggling with anxiety? What should they know about that to them? As if they don't know what to do, like you, and they have a child too, and they're like, oh my God, like they're relating to this because they're like pulling their hair out of their head and they don't know what to do.
Okay, the first thing you should know
Mhm.
is that you are not alone at all. And most of us, in myself included, when you are in the thick of it, you feel like you're the only person in the world who's experiencing what you're experiencing. And you are looking on Facebook, and every single one of your friends has a perfect life, and their perfect kids just got the honor roll, and they just won another award, and they just made captain of the team. And, that's all you see. And so you're sitting there going, everybody else has got this figured out, and my kid is the only one that's going through this. I'm the only one going through this. So I love telling this story too. When I wrote my book, um, it was astounding to me how many people that I knew well, I knew their kids. People kept coming up to me and saying, like, I need to talk to you about this because my little Susie has been going through this. And from what I had seen on the outside, Susie was rocking it. Susie was doing everything perfectly, but Susie was paralyzed by anxiety too. And Johnny was paralyzed. And so it's so important for you to know. I mean, this is the most common psychiatric disorder among kids. I think we all think, oh, it's ADHD because we hear about that all the time, or we
Yeah.
hear autism spectrum, and we hear a lot of other stuff.
And
Anxiety.
ADHD and anxiety, they
Oh, my gosh,
actually
depression and
go, yeah,
anxiety go hand
yeah.
in hand. So we
Yeah,
hear a lot
everything
of
goes
stuff.
with anxiety almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's everywhere. And so that I want it to feel like you're not alone um, and not abnormal.
Right.
It is not, it doesn't make you like, oh my gosh, we're broken. Something's terrible has happened. It's terrible when you're going through it. I will give you that, but it is something that is common. It is something you can overcome. It is something that lots and lots of other parents have gone through or are going through right now.
And I think too, though, a lot of parents, it's so funny. Like if they weren't going through that, they probably wouldn't see a lot of these things that, oh, their kids are doing this and they're posting pictures here on Facebook, and they wouldn't notice it. But because they're going, they think they're the only ones. Now they see everything that is all perfect and not the same.
Yeah.
It's just, I almost think like it's in your head because you think, that you're the only one, but it's not the case. Like
Right.
it's something that's really out there, especially with the pandemic. I'm sure you hear a lot of that now with what we went through this whole past year.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I had someone say to me, one of my clients who called me, and she became one of my clients, but she knew me personally. She knew me in life. And she called me and was like, I want to hire you to help me. I've got this problem. I thought you had a perfect life. She said that about me. And so I think we all do that. And I mean, but none of us, I post pictures of birthday parties. I don't post pictures of a child having a panic attack. I don't post,
Exactly.
She couldn't go to swim practice today. You don't post that.
Exactly. That's why too, even when you see all these posts, you don't know what's going on behind. That's why I say people the same thing. I've had that too. I've had people say, oh, you have a beautiful life. Far from it. But it's like the same thing, like you said. I'm not going to sit there and post in the middle of a screaming meltdown or something, and say, I'm not going to say that, so that's true. No. Now, what does anxiety look like in children versus like in maybe like older teens versus adults?
Well, the thing to remember about anxiety is that just remember the fight, flight, or freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about it in those terms, fight in little kids and big kids and teenagers often does look like a whole lot of anger. It looks like temper tantrums in both our little kids and our teenagers, something that isn't proportionate to what's happening. That's a sign, definitely with my own child. When there was like a big meltdown, and I would kind of be like, this is a small thing for this big meltdown. That was often anxiety.
Yeah, the smallest little thing will just, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to, and we got to a point where I could say, are you feeling anxious right now? And she would then stop and be like, actually, yes, I am. She got to a point where she started noticing it too. But at first, you're just, going, having the meltdown, the yelling. So anger can be anxiety. So that's fight. Flight. Sometimes literal running away and hiding under tables and things. Sometimes that is what anxiety looks like. Sometimes, again, this is my own child too. Sometimes the anxiety is trying to escape into something. What I see all the time is, because I have two teenagers, I'm around their friends, they use this right here. That's where they escape into. They pull out their phones and they're scrolling so they don't have to pay attention to how they're feeling.
Yes.
So
mine too. And I got a 24-year-old daughter and a 20-year-old son, and that's exactly what they do.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great tool. And we all do it sometimes, I mean, I do it too sometimes. If you feel a little awkward somewhere, like you're by yourself and you feel uncomfortable,
You'll start with
let me go look on. See what.
Maybe let me go just scroll through Facebook or something,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all do a little bit of that, but that's flight. Even like binge watching Netflix can be anxious. I just need to escape from what I'm thinking and just focus on something else. And then freeze, again, it can be a literal, like sometimes people literally are like, frozen and I don't know what to do. I can't move. I can't answer questions. And sometimes it's like a indecision. It's sometimes they'll be really like, and where I see this play out with kids is like they get stuck somewhere and they can't make a decision, or they keep asking the same question over and over again, or they ask a question that they definitely know the answer to, but they're like stuck. So like I've had my own kids be like, well, Bobby invited me over to his house. What do I do? And I'm like, that's a very simple question that you know
Right.
what to do, except you're
Exactly.
feeling anxious and you can't process right now because it's making you, Bobby invited me over to his house and I'm feeling anxious. What should I do? So sometimes it's like that kind of frozen.
I get it. Yeah. Like my daughter sometimes, like I guess that this would be like a flight. She could be like so like going like, oh my God, like in this anxiety driven, almost like anger. And then she'll be asking me questions. I'm like, well, okay, what do you like? She's asking me the same as after you ask me over and over again the same thing. And then she's like, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I'm upset. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, that is, I'm just trying to escape from this. And in fairness, that is like the most common conversation between a parent and a child who's feeling anxious, because what we want to do as parents is we want to help them. That's
Right.
all we want to do. We want to fix this, help them solve the problem. And they sometimes, because when we're in that state of fight, flight, or freeze, we aren't able to process. Our brain is kind of offline, our
Yeah.
thinking brain. So they can't, all the stuff we're trying to do to help them, and we all parents do this, I did this, it's like we try and reason away anxiety, or we try and explain why they shouldn't feel this way. And they
Right.
can't even process when we're doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, you don't realize. Now, what is like the quickest and easiest thing to do when a child is struggling? Like what if you have your struggling child, what is that quickest thing, the first thing that a parent should do? You have a child that's struggling. Maybe they're in that really like heat.
Okay, so I'm going to teach you something that a very wise friend who is a psychiatrist actually taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that when she was going through her medical school training, and you have to do all of your rotations, she did her rotation in the emergency room, and they told them the first pulse you take is your own. And that is so important for us to remember as parents, is when the child is having a meltdown, the first thing we've got to do is take our own pulse. We want to jump right into solving this problem, but that is often an anxious person trying to help an anxious person. Because their anxiety, nothing triggers anxiety in a parent more than the anxiety of their own child.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
It totally makes us, we get caught up in it. They're our children. I mean, it makes us panic. So before you do anything else, take the deep breath yourself. Take your own pulse. So a couple of long, slow, deep breaths to kind of bring you back into your calm energy so that you can help them. Because I will tell you, like, if you've ever been sitting in a car with a child who's having a panic attack, and you've heard yourself saying, okay, just breathe, just breathe. I've done that. I because I was panicking.
I've had plenty of those.
Yeah. So take that deep breath yourself. That's step number one before you do anything with your child. And then try and get them to breathe with you. Get yourself calm enough and say, okay, I'm taking deep breaths. I want you to do this with me. Just listen to me and do what I'm doing. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. And just like as calmly as I did right there,
Right.
keep doing that. And at first, they're not going to be able to join you. But if you can keep doing it calmly and slowly, you can get them to join in. And once you both start kind of getting your breath and holding, you can get them to out of the fight, flight, or freeze mode enough to have a conversation, to process, to talk about, like, do you want to go to baseball practice today? Or do you feel like you're okay? Do you, just, but until they go through that, a lot of times we want to jump into, do you think you can still go? Should you go to soccer practice? They don't know. They're having a pain. They're too worked up. Yeah. So do it yourself. Ask them to join you. Keep doing it yourself. Super important that you're going to keep doing it.
It's all about because you have to be calm first, because if you're, or like you said, then it's just like an anxious person leading an anxious person. So you need to have is it prevalent to sometimes, maybe if you need to get right there, maybe walk away? Like, could somebody say, should I leave the room if I have to, get calm and then come back?
It totally depends on the age of your child.
Yeah.
And the situation. But yes, if it's like an older child, a teenager, absolutely, it's okay to leave the room for a moment, to step away, to say, I know, I know you're upset. I'm going to walk downstairs and come back in just a minute. Or I need a minute to calm myself down. Or, I mean, I think one of the best gifts we can give our children who struggle with anxiety is to admit we struggle too, because it makes it okay. It's normal. The earlier you can do this with your children, to say, mommy was feeling a little overwhelmed right there. Sorry that I had a temper tantrum. So that's what happens when I feel overwhelmed sometimes. So then they start saying, oh, it's other people feel this, and this is what I do when it happens.
Right.
And it's okay to say, I'm sorry if I make a mistake, because that's another thing. Anxious kids are terrified of making mistakes. So we need to show them it's okay to make a mistake. We say we're sorry, we move on. Super important lesson for anxious kids.
That's an office thing. That really is. What is the biggest mistake parents tend to make when they're trying to help their anxious? What's that big, the biggest mistake that most parents would tend to make?
The biggest mistake, which was exactly the mistake I made, which was, this has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with her. I just need to fix her. And, this is her problem. And it makes sense, because when you think about it, as parents, everything that has gone wrong with our child up until they struggle with anxiety, they got the flu, or, they got strep throat, and it was all about just take care of them, right? So take them to the doctor, get the medicine. Don't think about ourselves. And with anxiety, you really have to think about as a chronic condition.
Right.
And if you're a caregiver of someone with a chronic condition, you have to take care of yourself. And like we said, not taking care of yourself actually makes their anxiety worse. It's like part of their treatment is treating yourself, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's absolutely, I mean, these are really good tips, because I know that there is a lot of parents out there that are struggling with it and struggling with themselves. So, when you have, like you said, when you have a parent and then you have a child, it just compounds it. So yeah, definitely.
And what a lot of parents who might be listening to this are thinking to themselves is like, oh, they live in a fantasy world. I don't have time to take care of myself. My kids have been home from school for a year. I don't have a minute to breathe, because I'm teaching them, I'm working, and I totally get that. There are simple things we all can do that actually can make a difference. Like I said, the meditation does not cost a thing to sit and listen to your breath. And you can do that with the Calm app, with your earbuds in. You can just sit on your...
I have the Calm app. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. You can sit on your balcony if you can't, if you're in an apartment and you just need, get in a closet, just find a little space where you can kind of have some quiet for just a minute. Walk outside, put your feet in grass, dance, sing, basic things like that, take a bath. Baths are amazing. There's all kinds of research about actually being in a warm bath and what it does for our mental health.
Exactly.
Simple, free things that you actually can do that are self-care that will make you feel like you've done self-care. It doesn't have to be a weekend at the spa to.
As I say, it's not about mani-pedi kind of thing. That's not the self-care that is. I mean, I tell people that self-care is what people don't even realize that is, but it is self-care. Making appointments. As women, we need to make our gyno appointments. We need to make our mammogram. We have certain appointments that we need. That's taking care of ourselves. And I'll have people go, well, I haven't made it. I know I'm so overdue. And I get, and you know what? I hear you because I've been there and I get it, but that's self-care. If you just schedule all your appointments and take care of yourself, you're doing that too, in addition to these other little things.
Totally. Do a few yoga poses. That is something you can do in your living room. You can look them up on the internet. You can follow somebody on YouTube. And that's self-care you can do at home during a pandemic, even with kids around,
Exactly. I mean, that's amazing. Awesome. Now your book, I think you were offering a free gift. I think it was a free copy of your book, right?
Yes. So
for the viewers.
My book is available on Amazon. It's available barnesandnobles.com. It's available anywhere you can get books right now. But if you would like to get a free downloadable copy of my book, this is my book right here.
Awesome.
Stop worrying about your anxious child. It's got
I'm gonna get that book.
Well, you can go to the website is From Anxious to Calm. Go from anxious to calm.com and you can get a downloadable copy. Or if you really like paper books like I do, I personally like.
I'm not even, I said, that's where I'm like old school with these technology. My kids have bought me a Kindle a few years ago. I said, do you take it? I like to read a book.
Me too.
It's the same thing. Even I have good old fashioned appointment book. I never mind this app. I have it and I try to do it, but I'm more comfortable that way. It's funny how you just can't. Meanwhile, my kids are on apps for everything.
I know.
But I think it's just the way you grew up and the way it's accustomed, Some things I can do. I mean, there's an organizational app that I hooked just recently. It's really cool. It helps, but for the most part, those books, I like to hold a book. But that free download was good because the people, they can download, they can get that free card, they can start reading that. And then then they can go like on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere and get a copy. I think that's great. What would you say to the viewers today? What would you want them to take away from this?
I think the most important thing that I would love for anyone who's listening, who's struggling, to know is that, like I said, you are not alone. Your child is not broken, and you can get through this. I am living proof that even when it seems like everything is falling apart, there are some ways that I wrote about in my book, lots of ways that you actually can get through this.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Really good advice. Great advice that you gave, Tonya, and really good. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, hold on. Did I stop?